first thing I heard was the scrape of metal against old wood. I was on my knees in the loft above my brother's workshop, pulling out a warped plank that had gone soft along one edge after a roof leak. The air up there was dry and close, full of sawdust and the smell of pine that had been cut years before. When I lifted the board, something underneath shifted. I reached down into the dark space between two joists, and my fingers closed around a small tin box, cold even in the heat of that loft. I knew the box. I had seen it on my father's workbench when I was a boy, but I had not seen it in more than 20 years. And when I opened it, the first name I saw was my brother's. I am Jonas. I am a husband, a father, and the head of my household in an old order Amish community. I share these stories because people often see the outside of our life, the horses, the plain clothes, the farms, the quiet roads, and think quiet means simple. It does not. Families carry things, sometimes for years. If you have ever learned something about someone you loved after you thought you already knew their whole story, you will understand why I still remember the weight of that little tin box in my hands. My brother's name was Noah. He was 4 years older than me, broad through the shoulders, quick with a hammer, and better with horses than any man in our family. When I was small, I followed him everywhere. If Noah was mending fence, I wanted to hold the staples. If he was greasing a wagon axle, I wanted grease on my hands too. He could make me angry faster than anyone and make me laugh 5 minutes later. That is the way brothers can be. By the time we were grown, we had separate farms less than 3 miles apart. He married before I did. He and his wife raised 3 children. I had my own household, my own work, my own children coming along. We saw each other often, but not in the way boys see each other when they share one bedroom and know every creak in the floor. A grown man can live near his brother for 20 years and still have whole rooms inside himself that no one enters. Noah died in late winter. It happened fast. He had been tired for a few weeks, then weak, then too sick to work. By the time we understood how serious it was, there was not much time left. I will not make more of that than it was. Death does enough on its own. Afterward, his sons kept the main farm going, but the workshop stood mostly as he had left it. That summer, a storm tore loose several shingles, and rain worked through the roof over the loft. I told his oldest boy I would repair it before another hard rain came. That is why I was there, not looking for secrets, not opening drawers, just replacing bad wood. The tin box was about the length of my hand, dull gray, with one bent corner. There was no lock. Inside were 14 letters tied with cotton string, 2 folded receipts, and a small photograph. We do not keep many photographs in our homes, so seeing one there stopped me before I read a single word. It showed a young woman standing beside a fence with a boy who looked maybe 6 or 7. The woman wore an ordinary coat, not plain dress. The boy had dark hair, one hand shoved into his pocket, and a serious look that struck me in a way I could not name at first. Then I saw it. His eyes looked like Noah's. Not exactly, but enough. I sat down on the floorboards. The loft was hot. Sweat ran down my back under my shirt, but my hands had gone cold. The top letter was addressed to Noah in a handwriting I did not know. The return name was Anna Keller. I knew no Anna Keller. The date was 26 years earlier. I read the first page once, then again more slowly. I will not repeat her words. They were not written for me. But I can tell you what the letter said because what they revealed became part of what our family had to face. Anna and Noah had known each other when they were both adults in their early 20s. She worked for a family-owned produce business in a town where Noah sometimes delivered furniture and farm goods. They became close, closer than anyone in our family knew. Before Noah married, Anna became pregnant. Their son was born the following spring. His name was David. Noah knew. That was the first truth in the box. The second was harder. Noah had not simply lost contact with them. Anna had written to him for years. She had sent news about David's health, his schoolwork, the questions he asked, the way he liked to take broken things apart and put them back together. She asked Noah more than once to meet him, not to take him away, not to change his life, just to let the boy know his father had not vanished because the boy had done something wrong. Noah answered some of those letters. His replies were not in the box, but Anna referred to them. He sent money at times. The receipts showed that. Small amounts first, then more as he earned more. But he would not meet David. He would not tell his wife. He would not tell our parents. He would not tell me. The letters stretched across 17 years. 17 years of a woman asking for less than I would have expected, and my brother finding reasons to give even less. At first I was angry with him. That came quickly. Anger is often easier than sorrow because anger gives your hands something to do. I stood up, walked to the far end of the loft, came back, sat down again. I wanted to say the letters could be misunderstood. I wanted to tell myself there must have been some part missing. There was a part missing, as it turned out, but it did not make things easier. Near the bottom of the box was one envelope in my father's handwriting. That was the moment the matter stopped being only about Noah. My father had known. I recognized his writing before I unfolded the page. Large square letters, heavy pressure from the pencil. The letter was addressed to Noah and dated only a few months after David's birth. My father wrote that Noah had made a grave mistake, that he had responsibilities to his family and to the church, and that bringing the matter into the open would cause pain to many people. He urged Noah to provide money quietly and to end contact as much as possible. The words were careful. They sounded almost reasonable if you read them fast. That made them worse. My father had not ordered Noah to abandon his son. Noah was a grown man and responsible for his own choices. I need to say that clearly. But my father had helped him turn silence into a plan. And once I understood that, old memories began to change shape. I remembered one winter evening when I was perhaps 14, when Noah and my father were talking low in the barn after supper. I came in for a lantern, and both of them stopped speaking. At the time, I thought they were discussing money. I remembered Noah leaving early some mornings with no clear reason, then returning before noon. I remembered my mother once asking why he seemed troubled, and my father answering that young men had things to work through. None of those memories had meant anything by themselves. Now they lined up like fence posts after fog lifts. I carried the box home under my coat, even though the day was hot. I did not want one of Noah's sons to walk into the workshop and find me holding it. I did not know yet what belonged to them, what belonged to his widow, what belonged to Anna and David, or what right I had to any of it. That evening I finished chores without telling my wife. I ate supper. I helped bring in the younger children. I checked the harness that needed stitching. The ordinary work kept happening, even after I learned I had a nephew I had never met. After the children were settled, I put the tin box on the kitchen table and told my wife what I had found. She read only the letter from my father because I could not bring myself to read it aloud. Then she put it down and looked at me for a long moment. She said, "You cannot put truth back in the box." That was the only advice I needed, though it took me several days to admit it. My first instinct had been the same instinct that had trapped Noah and my father years before. Keep the circle small, protect the family, avoid bringing pain where pain could still be avoided. I dressed that instinct in better words. I told myself Noah's widow had already buried her husband. Why wound her again? His children respected their father. Why change that? My mother was old by then. Why tell her that her husband had known? But every one of those questions had another person standing behind it. David. A grown man by then, close to 30, who had spent his life knowing his father would send money, but would not stand in front of him. What did protection mean if it always protected the people who had done the hiding? That question stayed with me. 3 days later, I went to see Noah's widow. I brought the box. I did not arrive with a speech prepared. There are moments when too many prepared words make a man seem dishonest. I told her I had found something in the workshop loft that concerned Noah's life before their marriage. I told her it was serious and that she deserved to decide whether she wanted to read it with me there or alone. She chose alone. I left the box and walked home. That 1.5 miles felt longer than most days of field work. The next morning she came to our place before breakfast. Her face looked tired, but she was steady. She had read everything. She asked if I had known. I told her no. She asked if my mother knew. I told her I did not believe so. Then she asked the question I had been afraid of. What are we going to do about David? I was grateful she said his name, not the boy, not the problem. David, a person, Noah's son, my nephew. We decided we would first try to find him and Anna privately before telling the wider family. One letter had an old address. It was no longer current, but the produce business named in the letters still existed in another form, and through several careful inquiries, we found Anna's sister. From there, a message reached Anna. I did not know whether she would answer. She had spent enough years writing into silence. I would not have blamed her if she refused. 2 weeks later, a letter came to me, not to Noah's widow, to me. My name must have been given in the message. The envelope was plain white. I opened it at the table with my wife beside me. Anna wrote that David knew who his father was. He knew Noah had been Amish. He knew Noah had sent money. He also knew Noah had repeatedly refused to meet him. David was married now and had a little daughter. He worked repairing agricultural equipment. When I read that, I had to stop for a moment. Noah had been able to listen to a machine run and tell you which bearing was going bad. He could hear a wagon wheel for 10 seconds and know if the hub needed attention. And here was a son he had never met, making his living with the same kind of hands. Anna said David did not want money. He did not want to embarrass anyone. He did not want to arrive at our homes and demand a place. He wanted one thing, the truth spoken plainly. He wanted to know whether Noah's family knew he existed, and if they did, why no one had ever come. That question shamed me more than anything else in the box, because by then, I was part of the answer, even if only for a few weeks. I knew, and I had hesitated. I began to understand how a few weeks of hesitation could become a year if a man kept feeding it good reasons, and how a year could become 17. We told Noah's adult children next. I will not pretend that meeting went smoothly. One of them walked outside before we finished. Another kept asking how we could know the letters were true, even with the photograph and receipts in front of us. Their youngest sat very still. Grief had already changed their picture of their father once. Now we were asking it to change again. I told them the part I believed mattered most. Their father had loved them. That did not become false because he had failed someone else. Human beings are not clean ledgers where one wrong number erases every right one, but neither does love at home cancel harm done somewhere else. Both things had to be held at the same time. Noah could be the father who taught his children to stack hay safely, who sat beside a sick daughter half the night, who never missed a spring planting, and also the man who would not face a son he had helped bring into the world. Age has taught me that a man can be dependable in 100 visible ways and still be ruled by fear in one hidden place. Telling my mother was the hardest part for me. She had been married to my father for decades. He had been gone several years. I knew the letter would change something she could never ask him about. Yet I also knew keeping it from her would repeat the same mistake in a gentler form. She read my father's page twice. Then she folded it exactly along the old crease and sat with her hands on top of it. She did not defend him. She did not condemn him. She cried quietly. I sat there and let her. I do not know what memories moved through her mind. Those belonged to her. In the weeks after that, our family felt exposed, even though almost no one outside it knew. Shame does not require a crowd. Sometimes it is strongest in a kitchen with 4 chairs and 1 piece of paper. I was ashamed of Noah for refusing to meet David. I was ashamed of my father for helping make secrecy feel righteous. I was ashamed of myself for understanding both of them so quickly. That last part troubled me most. I could imagine the fear. I could imagine the first conversation. If we tell now, families will be hurt. I could imagine waiting until after a wedding, until after a baby, until after a funeral, always finding a reason that today was not the day. Fear rarely introduces itself as cowardice. It comes wearing the clothes of prudence. It says you are protecting people. It says timing matters. It says 1 more month will not hurt. That is how men lose years. David agreed to meet us in a public place about an hour from our community. Noah's widow came. 2 of Noah's children came. I went with them. I will not describe every detail because that meeting belongs partly to people who did not choose to tell their lives publicly, but I can tell you what struck me when he walked in. He did not look like Noah in the broad way people say sons resemble fathers. His face was his own. His height was different. His voice was different. Then he reached for the back of a chair and looked down before sitting, and I saw my brother so clearly that it made my chest ache. Noah used to do that exact thing when he was nervous, grip a chair back for a second as though he needed to steady the room. We spoke for nearly 3 hours without dramatic accusations. David asked small questions. What food did Noah like? Was he patient? Did he sing? Did he have a temper? What kind of work did he enjoy? Did he ever mention the town where Anna lived? Did he keep the photograph because it mattered to him, or because he simply could not throw it away? I could answer some things. Others I could not. At one point, I realized I was giving a man pieces of his own father that I had taken for granted all my life. A story about Noah falling through pond ice at 12, the way he hated turnips, how he sharpened chisels, the hymn he sang under his breath while working. Those details were ordinary to me. To David, they were inheritance. When we left, nothing was repaired. That is important. Meeting someone does not repair 30 years. Telling the truth does not automatically produce forgiveness. A family secret is not a broken hinge you replace in an afternoon, but something had changed. David was no longer a hidden name in a metal box. Noah's children knew they had a brother. My mother knew she had another grandson. I knew I had a nephew, and our family could no longer pretend its shape was smaller than it really was. Over time, contact grew carefully. Not everyone wanted the same closeness, and I learned not to push. Some relationships became warm. Others stayed polite and distant. That was their right. Truth gives people a chance to choose honestly. It does not guarantee they will choose the outcome you want. I kept thinking about the word shame because that is what I felt at first, and I want to be precise about where it belonged. David was not our shame. Anna was not our shame. Even the fact that Noah had fathered a child before his marriage was not the deepest shame to me. People fail. People sin. People make decisions in youth they would not make later. The shame was that grown men who knew better had chosen reputation over responsibility for years. The shame was that a child had to grow into a man, wondering whether being acknowledged would cost his father too much. The shame was how easily silence had been handed down as if it were wisdom. I have sons of my own, and afterward I wondered what I had taught them without words. Had I ever made family reputation sound more important than truth? Those questions stayed with me. I cannot change what Noah did. I cannot change what my father advised. I cannot give David the years he should have had, but I can refuse to inherit the silence. That is the part a man still has control over. We often think inheritance is land, tools, livestock, money, a family name. It is also habits, ways of speaking, ways of hiding, ways of telling ourselves a painful truth can be delayed without being denied. I do not want to pass that kind of inheritance to my children. The tin box is no longer hidden in the loft. The letters were eventually divided according to what Anna and David wanted kept, and what Noah's widow and children believed should remain with them. My father's letter stayed with my mother until she died. Afterward, it came back to me. I have it still, not because I enjoy opening it. I almost never do. I keep it because it reminds me that a man can write something in one quiet room and have those words shape people he will never meet. My father thought he was containing damage. He was really teaching silence. Noah thought he was postponing pain. He was really giving it time to grow. And I nearly did the same thing when I carried that box home and wondered whether anyone else needed to know. What I understand now is simple. Truth does not become kinder because you delay it. Sometimes timing matters, yes. Sometimes privacy matters. But responsibility has a way of waiting at the same door. If the truth belongs to another person, especially a person who has paid the cost of your silence, you do not get to keep it hidden merely because speaking will embarrass you. I wish my brother had understood that while he was alive. I wish my father had told him. I wish I had never needed to learn it from 14 letters in a tin box. But I did learn it. And if you have ever had to decide whether keeping a family secret was protecting someone or only protecting the secret, I would be interested to know what helped you tell the difference. If stories like this help you see Amish family life as it really is, not perfect, not simple, but lived by people trying to carry faith, duty, failure, and love in the same two hands, you are welcome to subscribe. I will keep telling you what I have learned, one story at a time.